G'day guys, Mac with the Outer Circle, and today we're looking at the Emperor's Children. So, like with the Dark Angels previously, this is a part 1. Part 2, we'll be looking at the tactics of the Legion and expanding the Force. So, as per last video, we're going to assume that you're starting with this boxed set. You're going to have 40 Power Armoured Space Marines, 2 Praetors, Contemptor, 10 Cataphracti Terminators, and a Spartan Battle Tank. Very first thing you're going to need to add to this force to play is the Libra Hereticus. This is the traitor book, and it will have all the rules for the Emperor's Children. Whether you're playing them as loyalists or whether you're playing them as traitors, the rules are in here. That's the very first thing. Next thing on the menu, of course, Emperor's Children transfer sheet. So, excellent little transfer sheet here. Lots of options, lots of iconography, and very easy to use to make the force look very pretty. The little decals across the bottom of the sheet, excellent for adding a bit of trim onto your tanks, such as a Spartan. Now, when it comes to upgrades and making this Legion feel like your own, I spent a lot of time with the Dark Angels talking about the characters. So, obviously we have 2 of those characters. We have the Power Armoured one in the larger set of Mark 6, the very chonky boy here. Now, my suggestion with him is going to be doing something like cutting away the axe. So this will be a little bit of conversion. Cut away the axe. Cut it off just below the right hand of the miniature. Cut the axe away from the shaft, but leave the shaft intact. And cut the top of the axe off above his hand. Then I would suggest looking at the Lord of Payne from Warhammer Age of Sigmar and taking some of the iconography from this model and transferring it across. So his belt buckle, for example, I would use that on this character on his waist to create his belt buckle. I would use the head of the Lord of Payne's maul or staff or mace or scepter, whatever you want to call it, and add it onto the end of this guy in order to create a very fearsome weapon. You could also look at utilising the Lord of Payne, again depending how far down the path of Slaanesh one has gone, using his actual head, which is quite an interesting sculpt with his sort of little gimp suit going on, and placing that into this guy's armour, because they actually share a lot of similar traits, the two, with the draped pieces of armour hanging down. And it's really trying to utilise this model as best you can from the set, if you're going to keep it, to try and make it feel more like it belongs in an Emperor's Children force. On top of that, the Noise Marine upgrade pack is actually not a bad thing. Yes, it's old, yes, it's out of date, but there are some useful parts in here that you could use, such as the backpack. The backpack there, the Sonic backpack, excellent choice for commanders. And the various helmets may interest some people. Obviously, it's not everyone's taste, and it depends how far down the path of traitor one has gone. But you can always replace arms or replace hands on these miniatures, and this one gives you a few of them without being an overly expensive pack, when you consider all things. Of course, the next and most interesting choice here is the Murmadesh Painbringers. And I'm not saying to go out and buy this whole box, but it is very easy to get parts for these guys online, especially the weapons, because people who create Twin Souls, which is the other kit in this box, have a lot of leftover weapons such as the shields and the swords. So these swords in their armoured hands are almost identical to Space Marine powered armoured hands. That makes them an excellent fit to put onto your characters. So you could take something like this Mark 6 character here, cut the hand off at the wrist that's holding the sword up into the air, and then you could simply use one of these sabers of these miniatures on that character in order to create a more Emperor's Children looking character. Even the shield could be utilised to replace his Volkite charger, and that would give you a combat shield on the character. And then you could go from there and do whatever you like with it. You could use the crests off the helmets, for example, so the long flowing horsehair crests. The hair itself is separate, and the crest itself can be easily cut off the helmet and put onto another miniature. And of course, the little Slaanesh iconography and such, you could cut them off carefully with a knife if you had some of the models from this, and just sneak them into little spots on the miniatures to show their allegiance to Slaanesh if you were traitor affiliated. Now, if you're more loyalist affiliated, you can go with more traditional upgrades, such as the Emperor's Children Phoenix Spears here. So buying this set of Phoenix Spears, and forgive it, but in the picture, the one on the left is a one-handed power armor spear, but the blue tack they've used to hold the spear in place for the photo was never photoshopped out. It is a one-handed spear. That spear will, again, perfectly fit onto this character if you cut away his hand at the wrist. So, easy way to accessorize that character with a cool look. Of course, the 3 other double-handed spears in there can be used with the arm upgraded supplied in order to kit out the different characters in your squads. Your squad sergeants, like so, in the box, they can take those spears and be utilized across 3 out of your 4 squad sergeants in order to turn them into Space Marines with spears. And I would actually suggest making 2 of the squads 12 to 15 man squads and any leftovers putting them into the 3rd squad instead of going for 4 10-man squads. It's a better use or utilization of the miniatures available to you. Another thing you can do is going forward, I should also point out actually, there is 1 Terminator Spear in there. That's the second in from the left. That could be used on your Cataphracti in order to make the squad sergeant, again, really stick out and drive home the theme. So moving forward, Palatine Blades. Excellent choice for either additional characters in the force, using their weapons to upgrade your squad sergeants or characters, and of course, veteran tactical marines or Palatine Blades themselves. You've got lots of variety of options with what you can do with this particular kit. Personally, I think they're one of the best kits ever produced in the Horus Heresy, and although they are one of the oldest kits, they have actually made it into many of my armies because the detail is not so crazy on them that they only look like Emperor's Children. There are ways of modifying the miniatures so that you can put them into pretty much any other force. So a fantastic force that we're going to see more of as we go through this series. And I think an excellent base point for any other characters that you decide to create down the line. If you feel that they're a little bit on the small side, as some people do remember that the arms, the helmets, shoulder pads, all very useful iconography that can be used on other miniatures. And the bodies, again, because there is a slight scale difference between the newest plastics and the oldest resins, a little bit of plasticard underneath the feet to give them a little bit of extra height is a very simple way of making the Marines feel larger. And if you're very crafty, you can also potentially cut legs away and extend them, but I would leave that to the more advanced hobbyist. And lastly, of course, the Emperor's Children Phoenix Terminators. I'm also going to suggest a lot of Legion Terminators throughout this series, and this is no exception. Being in Tartarus armor, moving fast and hitting like a freight train, these are an excellent counterpart to the Cataphracti that are supplied in the main box, which are more renowned for their staying power than for their speed and athleticism. Utilizing the Phoenix Terminators as a combo punch, 1-2 as it were, with the Cataphracti means the Cataphracti represent the opportunity for the enemy to have to decide, do I want to kill the Terminators that are going to be very hard to kill, or do I want to kill these Terminators which are going to be very, very hard hitting in close combat? An interesting choice for opponents to make. Also, don't feel like you have to use these guys as Phoenix Terminators. There's a range of options available to you, from turning them into a command squad, turning them into different characters, as we've discussed previously, such as Primus Medicaes, as Siege Breakers, as a Master of the Forge, or you could use them even as a Praetor. There is very, very little conversion required to make one of these guys into a HQ, because these all look like excellent HQ models straight off the bat, and really they could fit into any army, because they are so detailed and yet not over the top. There is still room to play with them. And that's pretty much it for the Emperor's Children. We do know that they're going to have a Lucius the Eternal miniature coming out soon, which will be another great choice. They have Sol Tarvitz and Eidolon, of course, already, which are other great characters you can add to them. But for now, I'm going to leave the video there. Short, sharp, and sweet. Obviously, we're going to return to these guys in a second video where we talk about expanding the force and tactics, and a third video later down the line where we look at aftermarket parts that could be used on these, whether they're 3D printed or whether they are supplied from a third-party retailer. So if anyone is interested in supplying either visual or physical samples of products that they do, such as showing off an STL JPEG to me who creates these parts, that you think would fit really well into this force, please let me know, because I'd love to share great ideas with other people. Anyway, that's all from me, Mac with the Outer Circle. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all on the next one.